I wanted to talk about this when it came to the NFL on Christmas and Netflix because from a as you said, from a business standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, I understand why the NFL wants to get in on broadcast, why they want to get in on cable, why they want to get on streaming, and I'm all fine for a Saturday night Peacock exclusive or Thursday night football on Amazon. But to me, the Christmas day is your third biggest day of the year in the week, outside of the Super Bowl and Thanksgiving. You can make an argument for week one, but viewership wise, your three biggest days of the year are Super Bowl, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And you have stolen Christmas from the NBA. Nobody can dispute that. My worry is on Christmas Day, there are so many people at their grandma's house or their aunt and uncle's house, etc. Or, God forbid, I've done this, you've had to go visit somebody in a nursing home or in the hospital or something sad like that. And these facilities or these TVs or these, oh, whatever. So a lot of them will probably, even though maybe one person in the household may have a Netflix account, what if the TV or the internet or whatever, you don't have access, you can't get there to watch the game? Like that's my concern when it comes to the NFL and Christmas and Netflix is you are making it harder for somebody like I said that's over at grandma's house that doesn't even know barely what streaming is and may only have basic cable to try to hook up something to watch a ball game.
It's a crime that it really is on Christmas. And if they would have done this for Thanksgiving, I would have rioted
Oh
because
yeah.
it's a literal crime that you are making these holiday games on streaming services. Again, I agree with what you said. The Thursday night football on Amazon Prime, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with these weekend Peacock exclusive games. I have no issue there. The Black Friday game that they did last year on Amazon Prime, I have no issue there either. It's when it comes to like a Christmas. And like I just said, if they would have done this on Thanksgiving, all hell would have broken loose on my end. Because Thanksgiving, in my opinion, it's a better football day than Christmas. Regardless, every point that you said is true. If the internet goes out, you're screwed because you have Netflix and the TV might not work because internet may be out. If it would have stayed on cable, you would have maximized your viewership no matter where you would have been, because most places have cable. My household is a cable household. We have streaming services, but the main TV that everyone watches TV on in the living room has a cable box.
Yep.
That's all I
That's
got to say.
That's
And it's stupid
exactly
that it's
the
come down
same
to
thing
that.
with me. There is still value in cable. Now, again, some people use cable like a Hulu TV or a YouTube Wide TV, but I said for years, if you're going to do that, in my opinion, as us as sports fans, you might as well just get cable because all these streaming services don't have the exact network you need to watch these games on, and every single network is different. Like I know Fobo, for example, doesn't have Warner. They don't have TNT, they don't have TBS. Hulu, I don't think has something. There's some packages in Hulu, I think they don't have NFL Network or something like that. So it's pretty wild to me. Again, I get it. These streaming services are paying a lot of money for it, but to maximize your audience on a day where everybody is around the house and they're either watching the big NFL game or the big NBA game, and the NBA is pissed off because the NFL took Christmas away from them. And yet, the NFL did the NBA a favor by not even booking a primetime game on Christmas, the late games at 4 o'clock. That even makes it like that is the perfect time, right? 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. You're either eating dinner if you're on the East, or you're eating lunch if you're on the West Coast. Like, that's to me was the big mistake there. Is like, we got to put these games on cable.
Yeah, these games should be on cable. Now, as we say these games should be on cable, keep in mind, you and I both don't cheer for the Cleveland Browns. So we have to buy YouTube TV regardless to watch our teams play because that's just the reality of
Well,
our
yeah, well,
way of
well,
living.
I've always
But
said this as a consumer for the NFL. I think even if I wasn't an Eagles fan, I'd probably buy NFL Sunday Ticket yearly. The NFL is the one sport that I will sit there for all day, 1 to 11, every Sunday. I try to watch, bits and pieces of every single game. So It's why we cover so much NFL. It's why my early predictions for Brand's World for the 2024 NFL season is going to come out this Memorial Day. I'm going to preview that a little bit with you tonight. I'm not going to spoil everything, but I want to talk about your Washington Commanders because I think you're going to be happy with me. Because I think that Jane Daniels and the Washington Commanders are going to compete for a playoff spot. And I think they will be right there battling with the Dallas Cowboys for second place in the division. I know you probably think division is possible, and I will hear your argument on it. Though I think my Eagles will bounce back this year. But give me your thoughts first on the Commanders' schedule.
I look at the schedule, and my first initial reaction, Brandon, is okay. It's doable, and there's a couple games that I like to go to my fair share of games. Okay, there are a couple games that I am definitely going to go to. Week 3, Cincinnati, Monday Night Football. You will see me making the drive down. I am going to that game when Joe Burrow inevitably loses to the Washington Commanders because that's just how it is. But I think if the way I look at the Commanders' schedule is really weird because they play a lot of these top heavy teams. I feel like early on, like we're gonna have a hard game against the Browns week 5. That's a home game. That's another game that you may see me at Commanders Field. Then you play Baltimore the week after on the road. You play a Chicago Bears team, which we don't know what they're going to be. I think that they can be good.
I do too.
Many people think they're going to be bad. I hope they're bad because I want Caleb Williams to be a bust. But that's the reality of the situation. You got to look at where I'm coming from. Then I look at the later end of the schedule for the Commanders, and I'm like, week 15, the Saints in New Orleans. I'm sorry, I don't think the Saints are a team that I'm really threatened by.
I agree with you. I actually think this may be a hot take. I think the Saints are worse than Carolina this year. I
They,
have
they very well could be. We don't know. They're hard to
I
play.
have no idea what the Saints are as a franchise. I have no idea what their identity is, besides the fact they have Dennis Allen and a washed Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's going to be either. They are in cap hell, it seems like every year. I don't know who does the books over in New Orleans, but I don't think they're going to be good. I think they may win like 6 games. That's just how I look at the New Orleans Saints. Now they could always win like 9 or 10, but money is a huge part of running a team. And it seems like every year, like I just said, they're in cap hell. Then I look at week 16, we play you guys at home. I think, obviously, recent years we've played the Eagles very well. I expect a split with Philadelphia this year, no
I
matter
actually
where
agree
it's
with
at.
you.
I
I
expect a split with
Yep.
you. I expect a split with Dallas. And I'm going to call my shot right now. We're sweeping the New York
And
Giants.
I agree with you on all of that because first of all, I have no idea how the Giants got as many primetime games as they did.
Big
Um,
market.
and I think the New York Giants will be competing with the New England Patriots for the number one pick in the 2025 NFL draft.
Yeah, I think that you look at what happened with Malik Neighbors on draft night. He was literally depressed to go to New York because New York is a literal dump. Now, I think what's going to set the Commanders apart from these other teams that are maybe trying to rise from the ashes, we have a actual front office that knows what they're doing. We have a coach from Dallas who's been a head coach before in Dan Quinn, and he'll set his own culture. He brought his own guys there to lead the way. And I'm not sitting here and saying that the Commanders are going to win the division, which, by the way, they very well can in the wide open NFC East, where there hasn't been a repeat winner since 2004. But regardless, I think that with the Commanders, I've heard so much that this team could be the next rendition of the Houston Texans. And I have bought into that. I think that this team, I'm not saying they're going to be a huge, making that huge run. I'm not saying that. I think that they can make the playoffs. I think they can be a 6 or 7 seed. Hell, they might even win the division outright. I think it's possible in the NFC East. I think Jaden Daniels was the pick at 2. They made the pick at 2. He's looked really good in camp. His arm looks sharp. He has a lot of zip on that ball. He looks like he might have been the pick at 2. And I'm
Okay.
hoping it just pans out that way.
So, Austin, speaking of the first round draft picks, we came on and we talked before the draft. We talked about all of these 6 quarterbacks that ended up going to the first round. And I'm going to start with the most controversial one, which is obviously Atlanta and Michael Penix. What I think when the draft first happened, we all sat back and we said, "What the hell is happening?" But
Mhm.
when you actually sit back and you logically think about it, I think it was actually a very good pick by the Atlanta Falcons because I think that at the most, Kirk Cousins will give you 2 good years. And I think that, if you're in that situation, you're probably not going to be at the as high in the draft as you would to go get a potential franchise quarterback. And in this such enriched quarterback class in a division as down as the NFC South, he has a very good offensive coordinator in Zach Robinson, who came over from Sean McVay and the Rams. You got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London, you got Bijan Robinson, you got a top 10 offensive line. Like, I do think Michael Penix, even if it's next year, is set up to succeed. And we've seen teams. We saw my Philadelphia Eagles do it, right? Give Carson Wentz the big contract extension and move on, the very next year to Jalen Hurts. We saw Seattle drop Russell Wilson to make the playoffs the next year with Geno Smith. Like, it can happen. Dead cap it for 1 year is not the end of the world. And I think Michael Penix actually fits in Atlanta.
I think my only thing with Penix and that pick is I look at what Raheem Morris said afterwards. You look at what Green Bay did with Jordan Love. You let him sit for a couple years. You let him develop. I don't have a problem with that thinking. My problem comes in is when you pick a guy who's 24 and he may be 26 or 27 by the time he starts. That's my problem. Because I think Penix should have went to a team that wants to start him first year,
That's true.
given on his age. I think if you were going to do that, you should have picked J.J. McCarthy. You should have. Because J.J.'s a younger quarterback. You let him sit 2 years, he'll be 24, 25 when he gets the reins. Bo Nix, I would have not let that. Bo Nix will start in Denver this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Bo Nix will start. But picking a 24-year-old quarterback who's been in college football for a long time, who's been polished and developed in my eyes, I don't think picking him at 8 when he's going to probably start for you when he's 27, maybe 28. I don't like that. That's like the Browns picking Brandon Weeden. And I'm not saying that Penix is Brandon Weeden. What I'm saying is the timeline is going to be messed up. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Now, could it be a good
let me throw
situation for
this
Penix?
at you,
I
though.
think it could be, but I don't like the age that he's going to potentially start at.
Well, let me throw this at you. Is there a world? And I know, listen, I've seen the video that Kirk is obviously back on the practice field. But what if, let's say, his Achilles does not heal as right, and he's not ready to go to start the year? Maybe we all think. And Penix starts week 1. Like, is that on the board? I think it is. I think it's low, but I think it's on the board. And if he plays well, is there a chance that Kirk Cousins never plays a snap for the Falcons? Yeah, there kind of is.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, again, this is the true definition of a double edged sword. Okay. Because it's like on one end, you got a quarterback who's 24 now, and the plan is you want him to have him sit behind Kirk Cousins and let him learn a little more from Kirk and let him try to clean up some stuff. Okay. But what if Kirk goes down, like you just said, or what if he is just never the same? And you're like, man, you know what? Let's get Penix in there and let's see how he plays. And he ends up playing well. Well, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a lose lose, but it almost feels that way. Because on one end, you brought in Kirk Cousins to start, right? And you're paying him all that money. You're screwed on the cap. That's how it is. This is like a Russell Wilson situation, but you're not moving off Kirk Cousins, I feel like, immediately. I don't know. Just the way this is all playing out. If Penix were to start this year at any point, that's not like a dumpy week 18 game, then it's like, you know what? Maybe you did make the right call, and you better hope that the weapons around him can help. Because I also said he needed to have weapons to wherever he went. He's like a Tua in my eyes. He needs weapons where he can throw the ball and be successful. And Atlanta, they're building something, or hopefully trying to build something on the offensive end. But it almost feels like it's a lose-lose because on one end, if Kirk Cousins never plays a snap for you and he plays limited snaps because he's hurt, you're out all that money. But let's say Penix has to wait till he's 27, 28 and he doesn't pan out. Lose-lose. I don't know. It feels like it's a lose-lose. It could be a win-loss. I don't know. I just think that Penix going to Atlanta was a very bizarre pick, but the reasoning behind it, I understand. And I wish nothing but the best for him too, by the way.
Well, let me throw this out. I think out of the six quarterbacks they got drafted, if you want to include Spencer Rattler in there, go ahead, because I think there's chance he could start this year for the Saints if something happened to Derek Carr. But I think out of all the six that got drafted in the first round, the only one that I see that went to a bad situation is Drake May.
Oh, you're not wrong about that. I think, and listen, I think for New England, you needed to take a quarterback. You needed to.
Yes.
Okay, now again, listen, I'm happy he's in New England because if he would have been in the Giants, I would have hated that. But and I know you would have hated that too because I don't want to see one of these quarterbacks on an NFC's team. Regardless, I think with New England picking Drake May, obviously they needed to start somewhere. They couldn't get Jaden Daniels because a team picked them. A team picked Jaden Daniels before him. But Drake May is going to need a lot of work, and I've seen the videos of him and how slow that release is.
And what Gerard
And the
Mayo has
footwork and
already
the
said.
footwork does not look good too. And again, they know it's going to be a work in progress. They know that. Jacoby Brissett's back there. He's going to probably have to take the reins for a year, maybe two, if it really isn't working for Drake May. But New England has a bunch of issues, and quarterback is one of them. Their whole roster needs to be evaluated. Feels like every week. They have a lot of issues with that team entirely. And Gerard Mayo's he's gonna have a handful, man. I don't know. I think New England's gonna be pretty bad again, which I'm not mad about seeing because they were so good for so long. But Drake May, I mean, I guess it's gonna be a bad situation because New England's gonna stink. And Drake May could stink too. He might not pan out. But in another sense, I'm also glad he went to New England because he can develop. You're not in a rush to start him. You know what you're getting with your team. You're not in a rush. You put him out there when you feel comfortable. You don't have to rush him at all. So I don't know. That's how I look at it. I'm glad he went to New England. He can get the development that he needs, but that development can only take you so far with what you have on your roster.
So when the NFL over-unders came out, there was one team that their over-under was set so low. I thought this had to be a typo. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe. To me, I'm going to spoil this one for everybody. I'm taking the over on the Broncos at 5.5. Like, to me, they won 7 or 8 games last year with piss poor quarterback play. And I think Bo Nix is going to be exactly what Sean Payton wants. And I know the division's going to be tougher because I got the Chargers being way better. I get it. But to me, this Denver team is still a very good football team, and they're going to win games.
I feel like I'm on the other side of this one. I think that Denver, I know you said New England and New York are going to be fighting for the one seed. I also think, or the one pick, I also think Denver could go up there too.
Wow. Okay. So
I,
that
I
means you
think that
basically think Bo Nix is going to bust them.
I think Bo I think Bo Nix is going to bust because I think Denver is, and my big reasoning is they let go of Russ and they're going to have no money to really support that team with viable options to help him succeed. Because they already shopped Jerry Judy and they might have to shop Cortland Sutton. I think Denver's not going to be, in my opinion, I'm taking their under, and if they go over, then whatever. I've been wrong on plenty of bets, but I think that they're probably going to win, in my opinion, like 4 games.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
think that,
Okay.
I think they're going to be the worst team in that division, and I feel bad for Bo Nix, but ultimately, this is why you don't give coaches full roster control.
So the other one I thought, and this all depends on if he's going to play. If JJ McCarthy starts, we're going to know right away if he works or not. You have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, PJ Atkinson, Aaron Jones, Like I look at that NFC North division, and I think it could be the AFC North of last year, where all four teams finish above 500.
Mm-hmm. You said this before the draft that if JJ McCarthy went to the Vikings, he could succeed. I think he might, but from what I've seen on Twitter about, oh, he was missing passes. He was just not playing well. Like he was fumbling the ball a lot. Okay, whatever. I really don't care for that. They have a plan in place for him to start. It's kind of like Drake May. The Vikings have a plan in place for JJ McCarthy to start him when he's comfortable and when he's ready. I think JJ McCarthy, because my thinking is this: you're gonna have two stars out of this draft class for quarterbacks. You're gonna have two okay ones, and you're gonna have two busts. My two busts are, I think Bo Nix is definitely there. He's one of them. Just given the situation that he's in right now, I think he's gonna bust. And I don't want to say Penix is going to bust because I think if you're starting at 27 and you have that development, I think you'll be okay. It's either going to be JJ McCarthy or Drake May that inevitably bust, and one of them are going to be decent. And again, this take could bite me in the ass. But I don't know. I think JJ McCarthy is going to be okay. You look at the situation he's in, and I agree. Whenever we see him on the field, and if he's playing great with those weapons, then he's going to fit right at home. Kevin O'Connell's a great quarterback whisperer.
Yes, he is. And
He's a very good quarterback whisperer.
for the record, I've seen those reports too, and I'm not there in Minnesota, but I have a hard time believing that they are actually going to start Sam Darnold. I somewhat think JJ McCarthy may end up being your week one starter.
Okay. I know that there are betting lines out right now that say like, oh, JJ McCarthy to start week one is like plus 225. You'd take that?
I don't know. I'd have to wait and see how the reps are divvied up in camp and see how he looks in preseason. Because I don't believe that they would go into a season thinking that Sam Darnold's going to start all. He may start week one or week two, but I think very early you're going to see JJ McCarthy out on the field.
And that very well be maybe the case. And for JJ McCarthy, you gotta love again, you have got to love the situation. You have Justin Jefferson, who's probably the best receiver in the NFL. You have Jordan Addison, who's a very good number two. TJ Hawkinson, in my opinion, is a top five pass catching tight end in the league. Aaron Jones. I know he's not the Aaron Jones of old because he's been hurt, but he's still a viable running back out of the backfield. The offensive line does need work, but Christian Darrisaw is a very good piece for that. Regardless, I like what Minnesota has to offer on the offensive end, and you have a great offensive coach in Kevin O'Connell. I think it's a match made in heaven for JJ McCarthy specifically because of those weapons. Now, the accuracy is going to be my number one thing. The accuracy and the playmaking ability are going to be what sets him apart from, in my opinion, just like all the other quarterbacks. Because I think out of everybody, the microscope in my eyes is the biggest and brightest on JJ McCarthy. Out of the six quarterbacks, because you have your expectations with Caleb,
Yep.
you have him with Jaden, and you have him with Drake May. But when you talk about JJ McCarthy, that's when you really start looking into the microscope and saying, hey, you have these expectations, and I'm not saying they're as big as the top three quarterbacks that were picked, but you have these expectations where you were a stud in college, you are a winner in college. You've got to show that now at the NFL level. And I think he is going to be the quarterback that faces the most pressure going into the year is JJ McCarthy. Whenever he starts, he will face the most pressure.
So we're going to wrap it up with this. Outside of your Washington Commanders, I want you to give me a couple teams here from each side. I want you to give me a good surprise team, like a team that you think is flying under the radar, that you're higher on the most. And then I want you to give me a team or two that, some people have way too high that you're not as high on.
Okay, so obviously outside of the Washington Commanders, which I believe we're going to end up being a playoff team, and again, if we don't do well, oh well, it's going to be a rebuild. But I think a team that is going to be relatively surprising in the NFC. I'm not saying this team makes the playoffs, but I think that the Carolina Panthers can make some noise. I think with Dave Canales, guy that everyone's like, you know what, maybe he was a year away from taking a job. If he could develop Bryce Young the way he developed Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, okay, Carolina could be a threat in the NFC South. The NFC South, literally anyone can win. I think the Carolina Panthers could easily be a 7 seed. Maybe win that division if Atlanta really starts messing around and just loses a bunch of games that they shouldn't. I think Carolina is going to be the sneaky team to watch. I think a team that's going to be disappointing in the NFC before I go over to the AFC. I think a team that is going to be really disappointing in the NFC is going to be the Detroit Lions.
Wow.
I think the Detroit
Wow.
Lions had their chance, and I think that I'm not going to sit here and say oh, my hot take is they're not making the playoffs, because I still think they can. I don't think they're going to win that division. I think the Packers will. I think the Packers really could be the team that dethrones them on their 1 year, legacy run, that however the Lions looked at it. I think the Lions could honestly finish. I'm not going to say dead last, but they could finish third, because I think the Bears could be really good too. So
You know what? But before
I
you
think the
move on to
Lions
the
could not make the
AFC,
playoffs.
I'm going to actually say this is where we're the complete opposite because one of my hot takes, a little bit of spoiler alert for you guys out there, I think Green Bay could finish last.
Oh, I don't know about that. I really like what
I
Jordan Love did last
I
year.
don't
Need to build
think
off of
Green
that.
Bay is the best at anything in their division. I don't think they have the best quarterback. I don't think they have the best coach. I don't think they have the best weapons. I don't think they have the best defense. Like, I look at it and I'm like, Detroit's weapons and quarterback, I like better. Chicago's weapons and quarterbacks, I like better now. And if JJ McCarthy hits the way we think he could potentially hit, I think Minnesota could be right there with Green Bay competing for third and fourth. That's just the way I look at it. I could be
I
wrong.
think
Maybe
I
I'm too high on the Vikings, and I acknowledge that. But that's just I think it's a quarterback weapons league now. And I think Green Bay in their division, if you look at it, they're fourth in weapons to me. And if Caleb hits to me, and as good as Jordan Love is, he's probably third in that division because Goff plays at home like an MVP candidate. And they're going to be at home most of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. The way I look at the NFC North now, it's going to be anyone's game other than Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota's going to win that division at all. I think Chicago can win that division. I think Green Bay is very alive. I have them winning that division. I really like what Green Bay did at the end of last year. I think Green Bay can easily build off that. I think Jordan Love is going to be a top 5 quarterback. When next year is said and done, he will be a top 5 quarterback. It doesn't matter about the weapons. The weapons will come and go. He throws people open. He can run when he has to. I really do believe that Matt LaFleur has a quarterback that is going to be top 5 next year. And I think that defense, they did make some moves. They got Xavier McKinney from New York, which I didn't think was going to be possible, but they ended up plucking him to help the secondary out. They still got Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith up on the front lines. They have some decent linebacker players that they've already had. I'm telling you right now, I think Green Bay does it. They win that division. I
Okay.
think the Lions stoop down to as low as 3. Probably they finish second if I were to make a prediction, but I think the Lions missed. I think they should have. They last year was the year that everything needed to hit, and it didn't. And I think while a lot of people think they're going to be good, I think they're going to be third. It's just plain in that division. I think it's going to be plain as
No,
day.
I mean that's fair.
I
I
think
mean,
that they can honestly miss the playoffs, and I would love for them to miss the playoffs, given that their offensive coordinator is a child. So I don't really know what else to say.
all right,
The
all right.
NFC. Now let's go to the AFC.
Let's go to the end.
Let's go to the AFC. Team that could surprise me in the AFC. Hmm. Do I want to pick a team that made the playoffs last year that I think could be really like that they could step it up? Or do I want to pick a team that missed the playoffs by a bit and they could easily win and do what they have to do now? You know what? I might as well do that. I think the Tennessee Titans could be a very surprising team this year.
Oh
And
wow,
I think, and yeah,
wow.
we're going into, and this can apply for the Colts as well.
No, I like
I'll
the
give
Colts
my reasoning for
a
both of those.
lot.
I'll give my reasoning for the Titans. I think they've done everything in their power to help Will Levis this offseason. I think we're going to find out if Will Levis is going to be a franchise quarterback by the end of the season. You go out and you get Calvin Ridley, who's going to be a good 1A, 1B. You already have DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be a 1A, 1B. You bring in Tony Pollard from Dallas. It's another great
They
guy
have
that you
Tyler Boyd too. They brought him from
Tyler
Cincinnati.
Boyd. Yep, who already knows the offensive system that Callahan's going to be running down there. You pull in Callahan, the father,
Yep, yep.
pull
The
in him
offensive line
Cleveland
coach.
to work for his son. So now you're going to have a better offensive line, in my opinion, because it's better coaching, more experience. The way I look at it, and then you look at the defense side of the ball. They bring in L'Jarius Sneed,
I
who's
totally
very
forgot about that. I'm not even gonna lie.
he is a very good corner for Kansas City last year, and he's getting a bag too. And it just seems like Tennessee, they had a bunch of money to spend in the offseason and they spent it. And Rand Carthen, he knew. He knew that if you got to help your team out, you have the second or third most cap space, go ahead and do it. Now, am I going to sit here and say they win the division? No. Texans are going to win the division. But I easily think that the Titans could be a 6 or 7 seed. I think they could. I think if everything goes to plan, they could be a pretty damn good team in the AFC South. You could say the same thing about the Colts as well, because I think Anthony Richardson's going to hit. If he doesn't get hurt, he's going to hit. Shane Steichen, great head coach. I think that they should have made a little more moves on the defensive side of the ball. Whatever. Regardless, I still think that the Colts can hit. So those are my two surprise
No,
teams. I would lean Tennessee though as the team that could really take the bull by the horns here.
I agree with that. Now, I kind of think, and you could be right because you're convincing me about Tennessee, but I kind of think that they're going to be what your Commanders were last year, which is the team that has all the weapons, just doesn't have a quarterback and ends up being terrible. Because I don't think that Will Levis is it, but I think the difference maybe is they have an offensive head coach and they have maybe out because I think McLaurin and some of those weapons are comparable, but I think Tennessee may have more than what Washington had last year. I don't know. I also think it's a harder conference. I'll
It
say
is, it
this.
is a harder conference. I agree.
I've been all in, and you may laugh at me because last year I said, no, it's not going to be their year. There's too much hype around them. I think this is the year for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. I think the time is now.
I don't hate that at all because I do these crazy little future bets that could hit for like thousands of dollars. And it just seems like every time I go to my app, who's going to win the AFC East? And I always pick the New York
I'm
Jets
telling you,
because
I'm picking the
they
Jets
are
this
they are
year.
literally the definition of a quarterback away.
Yep.
They are.
And I
They have
think
every box.
Buffalo lost too many weapons on the defense side as well as Diggs. I don't even think Buffalo is a playoff team this year. I have them regressing. Now they could sneak in as a wild card, but they're not going to be nearly as good as what they were. And Miami, when you get late in the season, we know they're not the same team. The Jets have upgraded their offensive line. They added Mike Williams. They have a healthy Aaron Rodgers. They have a good back in Brees Hall. They have all the ingredients you need to win this division.
Mhm. I agree with you, and you kind of just leaned into a team that I thought was going to be a disappointment, and I think the team that I was going to it was either between the Browns and the Dolphins, and I'll lean the Dolphins because I think the Dolphins are, even though the Bills, they have Josh Allen. I will never discount them. They
Yep,
have Josh
that's
Allen.
true.
He is a top 5 quarterback. However you slice it, he is pretty damn good. I will always give them a fighting chance. Yes, they lost a lot. I think this revamped wide receiving room can work. I think it will work. I think adding Keon Coleman, MVS, and Marquez Valdez Scantling, Curtis Samuel, former commander, who's a very competent receiver as well. I think they'll be just fine. They have Kincaid as well. They have Dawson Knox, I'm pretty sure, unless they cut him.
No,
But
they still have Knox. They have
love
Kincaid. They have
Knox.
James Cook. So they'll
Yeah,
be
they
fine.
just had a retool, Brandon. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they're not going to make the playoffs. I think that they're not winning that division, though, given how New
No,
York
I
is
don't think they'll
loaded
be
up.
bad. I think they'll win, somewhere between 8 and 10 games. I have them about 9 right now, but I just don't know in the AFC if they're going to be able to qualify for the playoffs. That's I think it's going to be Miami, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Houston. Like we said, the Colts. I think Jacksonville could have a bounce back year. I'm never going to count out Trevor Lawrence or Doug Peterson. Now say that what you will, their roster is not great. I could have them in Tennessee flipped. Again, it's May right now. Like we just gotta see. I think this is a perfect way to wrap it up though, because I sadly agree with you on the Browns.
I,
I so
they,
here's my thing.
they're just in a hard spot right now,
Yep,
Brandon.
they
They
are,
really.
and they have the toughest schedule in the NFL. Their home schedule is harder than their road schedule. I've never seen anything like their home schedule before, where they could legitimately win two home games the whole year. And to me, like Cincinnati and Burrow, as long as he's back and healthy, they're gonna win games. Baltimore's not going away, and the Steelers have maybe the hardest schedule in the NFL the back half of the year. And it looks like the NFL is trying to push Mike Tomlin out to television. But I can't discount Pittsburgh. I mean, until they don't have a losing season, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this is the year they're going to have a losing season, because I said it for the last 3 years and I'm done saying it.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh's going to be actually really decent this year. Whether Russell Wilson finishes a starter or not, I think that they've made the changes that they've showed some urgency with
I
this
mean,
quarterback
they
room.
won 9 games last year with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
they've made some. It's urgent. They know that if they could just build the roster the way they need to, it's going to look good. And they've made moves. I'm not going to sit here and say they haven't. They've also tried to build their team. They made Baltimore weaker by getting Brandon Queen. Or not Brandon Queen, excuse me. They got Patrick. They got Patrick Queen. They made him weaker. You pulled a guy who, a lot of people thought he was going to get a lot of money in longer years. Patrick Queen's going to be good. Regardless, I think Pittsburgh. I mean, any one of those teams can win the division, regardless. I think Pittsburgh probably has the least amount of chance to win that division. But I think that their quarterback room, compared to last year, definitely can win a division. And who knows? If Russell Wilson goes down, I think you put Justin Fields in a good position to give him, viable weapons for him to move forward. I think the Browns are just in a hard spot. I don't know how they're going to do next year. That's what happens when you have a hard schedule the way they do. Man, it's going to be. We're going to know a lot about the Browns next year if they can end up being like 10-7, 11 and
Yeah,
6.
for sure. This is the first I've
12 and
ever said. I think the Cleveland media is too hard on the Browns, because there's this expectation where it's like playoffs or bust. And I'm like, can they win 8 games with this schedule? Because I think like 8, 9 wins, to me, the way I see it, is cap. Like you said, 10 wins would be amazing in this schedule.
Oh yeah, if they win 10 games with the schedule that I see, they could maybe make a run in the playoffs if they get there. They maybe can,
And
because
they have to
they're
start
a
off hot.
defensive first team, and we need to see how Nick Chubb comes back and plays. Is he going to be the same running back that he was before that second injury that he had on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh? I have no idea. I have no idea.
Like that clip from the Brandsworth podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandsworth podcast right here on YouTube.